Hello folks, and I hope you're all well today, and today I'm taking a small look at the history of a very interesting Polish soldier. This soldier served of the Polish land forces in the 22nd Artillery Supply Company from 1943 until 1945 officially. Now, in history, we have many soldiers that deserve a closer look at, many heroes who did great things for their nations. Some who took many enemy lives, some who saved many more, ones who picked up a gun, faced down unspeakable horrors, and others who put down their weapons to try and save others from such horror. But generally, when we speak of a soldier, we're talking of a brave man or woman who sign the dotted line, accepting their fate as if it were to come. However, Wojtek was a different case. He was one of the unlucky few that are actually born into a situation of war and thrust into that conflict through no choice of their own. Now, I'm sure you have seen the thumbnail and have noticed that there is a bear on it. And, well, normally, yes, a soldier is human, but sometimes that's not always the case. You see, Wojtek was a special case. First off, he was born in Iran, but he was Syrian. Now, I'm not saying Syrians are not Homo sapiens, but this particular Syrian, Syrian-Iranian, was, well, not a human. He was a Eurus actrus syriacus. There we go, I managed to get it out. Or in simple terms, a Syrian brown bear, a much smaller variant of the more common Eurasian brown bear. Now, when I say smaller, it still weighs nearly 500 pounds and stands 6 feet tall, so it's still a bloody big bear. Anyway, yes, this was a bear that served as a soldier in the Polish army. Oh, and a disclaimer, I'm bound to butcher names in this. I apologise in advance to any Polish people who are watching. So, our story starts in 1939, a few years before our hero was actually born. In 1939, it wasn't a great year for Poland, all in all. You could say, as from the east, the Soviets decided to invade, and from the west, the Germans wanted some of the Polish pie. Having made a pact to take over the nation, the two nations of Germany and Russia made their new homes, and with that, many Polish soldiers and people were taken as prisoners of war and had to leave the country as refugees, spreading across the world. We jump forward to 1942. One of these refugees is an 18-year-old Irana Bokvis, had a chance meeting with a young boy at a railway station in Hamdan, Iran. The boy who had come to the station was selling something small, cute and fuzzy. Having found this cub next to its mother, who was believed to have been shot by hunters, although this case is still actually open, any evidence on Mama Bear's death would be appreciated. Please send to the correct police authorities. Irana was the great niece of one-day president of Poland, and a rather interesting and well-decorated general and war hero, Bolesław Winowa Dolazowski. Again, I'd apologise about the pronunciation. Now, what all this meant was that Miss Irana had a little sway with her travel partners, mainly Lieutenant Antol Trwalski, who gave over a few coins to the boy and purchased the young bear, and the journey begun. First stop was a Polish refugee camp in Tehran, where the cub was cared for by the young girl and many of the camp's occupants. However, food was scarce, and looking after a growing bear cub could not have been that easy at the time. After around 3 months, the bear was donated to the 22nd Artillery Support Company to serve as a company mascot and a morale booster for the troops, which, according to Aileen Orr, the author of Wojtek the Bear, Polish war hero, and a lady we will actually come back to a little bit later on, the troops would treat the young cub as if it was their own son. The likely cause to this was because of the fact the years of war had torn apart their own families and lives. Many of the soldiers, having lost loved ones and lost children of their own, took on a behaviour to treat the bear cub as a child of theirs. It was almost therapeutic in a way, and a coping method for the young soldiers. At a young age, the cub had issues with swallowing, possibly due to his younger age, obviously. So they nursed him with a vodka bottle, which they filled with condensed milk, and fed him on this for a fair few months until he could start eating solids again. The soldiers named him Wojtek, a pet name of Wojtek, which meant in Old Slavic or Polish, that sort of area, a happy warrior or smiling warrior. After the Soviets signed the Sierowski-Majewski agreement, many Polish soldiers moved around the Middle East, aiding the British troops and retraining for integration into the upcoming Allied operations. The bear became part of camp life, often sleeping next to soldiers on cold nights, wrestling with the men in times of rest, and started to drink beer, which became one of his favourite treats, along with smoking the odd cigarette, which he'd often take a few puffs of before eating it. I know, not great things for an animal, but these were different times, remember? He soon became the unofficial mascot of the 22nd Company. He learnt to salute, to march on his hind legs, and is said to have been able to basically hold new recruits by the ankles and scare them into thinking that Wojtek was going to eat them, a particular talent that some of his comrades taught him so they could get a few more rations from new recruits. Now, life in Egypt was not easy for a bear. Although the cold nights were not too bad, the sweltering heat of the day did cause quite a few issues, especially in strict military rations. As any good soldier would do, however, our smarter than the average bear soon learned that in the day the soldiers would practice grenade throwing techniques, and they often used this with live oranges, which were a fantastic and tasty treat and quite thirst quenching as well in the midday sun. His other skill for getting water, you could say, was to sneak into the communal showers. He even managed to learn how to turn the taps of the handles on so he could drink from the actual shower heads. This did not make him popular with a few troops, however it did endear him to many others. Following his company, Wojtek travelled across the Middle East until finally they received their orders to fight alongside the British 8th Army for the upcoming assault on Italy. Now, this led to some minor issues for the 22nd Artillery Supply Company, mainly being that regulations on board British transport ships at the time did not allow and forbid pets and mascots to come aboard. This led to the Polish having a rather crafty idea, and meant that we now had a private Wojtek being enlisted into the ranks of the company. Along with this, it led to him getting his own paybook, rank, and serial number, along with a few extra rations and a tent, of course. Now, this new recruit needed a little help from day-to-day activities, as being a bear in the Polish army is not that easy. So 2 men were assigned to his aid, Henryk Zachowicz and Dmitry Solgol. These 2 men were basically put to be his aide and look after him in the months and years to come. Wojtek became quite a bit of a celebrity amongst the men and would often travel in the passenger seat of trucks in the convoys. He became very popular with war photographers as well. When the trucks came to a stop, Private Wojtek had his uses, often aiding in carrying goods to set up camp, Although there are accounts of him picking up and lifting boxes, I imagine most of this would have been done like a pack mule, mainly loading him up on the back and using him to carry bits and bobs like that, although he did help unload trucks at times, as he could do this being a bear. Luckily they have big paws to use. As the battles in Italy started to get harder, the private started to grow bigger, to a stage where he no longer would fit in the seat of many trucks. Luckily, the unit had a recovery vehicle in the troop, which had a nice large flatbed on it. This truck also had a crane on the back, which Wojtek would often enjoy swinging around on as the truck would move through Italy. The 17th of January 1944. The 22nd Artillery Support Company were to take part in the offensive against the Winter Line that defended the Western Axis-controlled Italy from the Eastern Allied assaults. The start of the Battle of Monte Cassino had begun. The job of the 22nd Support Company was to resupply the front lines and keep the 25-pound artillery shells coming, a hard task with each crate weighing up to 100 pounds each, and would often require 2 to 4 men to carry a single crate. His comrades worried about a 200-pound brown bear and how he would react to war in all its grisly nature. They were relieved, however, when Private Wojtek paid no attention to the loud bangs, the wounded men coming back, and the large explosions going off all around him. During the battles, which lasted until May, at some stage Zarowitz was called to act as a spotter and take leave of his compatriots behind at the staging area, and this is where the private is said to have started his work. The bear emulated his family and friends, saying to have picked up the shell boxes and unloaded them from the back of the trucks. He then started to follow his fellow soldiers, taking the boxes to and from the artillery lines from their staging post. Although many myths have come up with these actions from Wojtek, from driving trucks to the guns, to him carrying a single shell up a hill and handing it to the gunners personally, there have been a few fairy tales spun about this one. However, we do have a fair few cases of possible facts in this one too. The main being a few British artillerymen who were shocked as a 200-pound bear came up to their artillery positions, next to a group of Polish soldiers carrying ammunition. Obviously, seeing a giant bear lumber towards you in the middle of a war zone is something you likely would not forget anytime soon. Although the private did not carry live shells, he did aid in taking back the crates and spent shell cases. He is said to have worked with the men and did not stop until they did. Finally, when Zarowitz returned, he was delighted to see his friend unharmed, and it's said that Wojtek aided in the ammunition lines as well, a number of times working with his fellow soldiers to pass mortar rounds like a conveyor belt from hand to hand. For his brave actions, he impressed his unit commander, such that he had earned a field promotion to that of Corporal, and that, as well as a new insignia for the company, was ordered in recognition of his service at Monte Cassino, that of a bear on its hind legs carrying an artillery shell. In 1945, the Second World War had come to an end, and the 22nd Company had headed to Berwickshire, in Scotland. They ended up in a place called Sunwick Farm near a village of Hutton. At 4 years old, the corporal settled into the life of a farm and as a new mascot for the Polish army quite well. He became a bit of a local celebrity, often attending parties and victory parades, even ending up on British TV shows such as Blue Peter. He stayed with his Polish army friends until the 15th of November 1947. This is where Wojtek left his Polish friends and the 22nd behind, and the troops deciding it was not best to bring a bear back to Soviet Russia, as bears may be paraded as a bit of a war hero, and they didn't want to have the propaganda for the communist nation. So a teary farewell was made as he was handed over to the Edinburgh Zoo, where he spent his retirement from the army. However, his comrades in the media would often visit him, and many a soldier who served with the corporal would toss him a packet of cigarettes to munch on in his pen. At the age of 21, weighing in at a very hefty 490 pounds, Corporal Wojtek joined his comrades in the sky and passed away. It was said he died of either an esophagus issue, but it's more than likely it was just due to his lifespan. The average lifespan of a Syrian bear is around 20 to 25 years, so being 21, generally age of old age, death, things like that. In 2013, Aileen Orr, who was mentioned before, got a bronze statue erected in Prince Street Gardens in Edinburgh. The statue of Wojtek stands next to a Polish soldier, walking as a pair, as they often would. Another statue was erected in Jordan Park in Krakow and has its own little commemoration for the 70th anniversary of the Battle of Mont Cassino. And that's really the story of Corporal Wojtek, the Syrian-Iranian bear who rose the ranks of the Polish army and lives on to this day as a fond figure and a Polish hero, really. He was obviously, had a bit of a tough life, his mother being shot and all that, but getting into the army seemed to help him quite a lot, and it helped the Polish soldiers as well. Many of the soldiers were very sad to have left him, but they also felt a kinship with him because, like them, he didn't have a country to go back to. The Polish soldiers often felt that he was a symbol of that. Being left behind in England, many Polish stayed in England after the war. Many Polish moved to America and other Commonwealth countries as well, and Allied countries too, not wishing to go back to the Soviet-occupied Russia out of fear of the communism there. And Wojtek became a bit of a symbol for that, and has since, many of the soldiers that served with him have said fond things about him, and they wish he could have come to Poland and actually visited the country he was fighting for. Now, there is actually a new documentary movie being made, well, it's been made actually, with a mix of animation and live action. The animation's actually held by the person that did The Snowman, a fantastic little animation for Christmas in England when I was growing up. Wojtek the Bear That Went to War. I've not found it anywhere. Apparently it is on Netflix somewhere, but it is being distributed around the UK. It's not fully out for distribution yet, 2020 obviously being a strange year, but definitely one to get a hold of if you found this story interesting. It goes in more depth and has more information about Wojtek. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again. Until next time, this is me, Carl Screezilla, wishing you all well. Bye-bye.